The fourth dimension, I think, is actually the best model concept to explain the possibilities in one's life. So first of all, um, starting from the first dimension, where it's just like one line which you usually use to indicate, for example, the distance between A to Z, or you could use it to indicate the time, the like history, for example. And when it comes to second dimension, it is like a sketchbook, like that. There's like canvas which can be used to indicate specific location, like map. The application would be a map, or and something a little more advanced than the first dimension, obviously, because there's one more dimension. And the third dimension, which we usually think that it is actually a representation of the life, our world, 3D world, where it is there are three axes: y-axis, z-axis, and the x-axis, which could be actually used to indicate the volume of certain things like water, or then it can also as well be used to indicate certain location in more precise way, because this world that we are living is believed to be 3D. But now it seems like there is a bunch of videos talking about 4 dimension, and everybody's talking about first, second, and third dimensions with just exactly the same models, and they're saying that fourth dimension cannot be actually visualized because it is basically impossible to see and impossible to visualize it. And a lot of time people seem to use tesseract to actually create a model of 4 dimension, but actually tesseract has only like 24 faces and 32 edges, and it's constantly moving, basically like one basically there's like cube inside of cube, for example, and then it's just moving in very odd directions, like everything's moving at all time, which is not possible in the 3D world, which actually I think is possible with the very flexible Play-Doh. Actually, you can actually visualize how Tesseract is visualized in graphic. But now, so some people are arguing that the fourth dimension is the time or duration. Somebody wanted to call it a duration, because when you say it as a duration, it can go forward and backward. When it's time, it's just going one way. But I think that's not something that it's applicable only to the 4 dimension, because every this model, first, second, third, and 4 dimension, they or can have the time as a variable. So when you can animate things, you can actually animate things, like for example, like the speed of the car from A to Z. You can visualize it, you can animate it on the first dimension. and then you can animate it with the time, and even more precisely on the two dimension, second dimension, and the third dimension the same. Basically, like for example, in third dimension is very easily understood because you have like these movies made out of 3D models and 3D world, and the models are moving, and then basically as they move, it goes along with the time frame. So actually, if you know how to model 3D, you can understand it better because you can actually grab the timeline and move back and forth, and then see how objects are moving in the 3D model. And now, so the time is not exactly the only. That's not a unique to 4D. Every dimension model has time. It can have time as a variable, but this is up to you. This is up to you, up to the goals, and up to the purposes of this creating the models. And but then also when you think about 3D, three dimension, third dimension is the model for the real world is not exactly true, because the third dimension, this model has like certain 0 point, just like first and second dimension, and same with the third dimension. The fourth dimension does not have the starting point, like 0 point. So that's the only model that actually has no 0 point. And when people talk about fourth dimension, they always, a lot of videos are actually visualizing using tesseract and all other models to animate it. It's moving, constantly moving. But actually, fourth dimension I think, is not about being animated. It's not about time. I think it's about the uncountable number of the variables in your life. For example, the place you're born, the place, your gender, your race, the geographical location, at different times, and depending on what kind of job you do, all these variables are interconnected, intertwined to your life, and depending on one variable, for example, like you can make a decision to go to school or not go to school, and depending on that, you may be in different geographical location, and or then you may be doing different things, or then, and as a like variable also, that you may be making different amount of salary, and every small things, everything basically that can be happening in your life within a certain time frame. So basically everything, like from light to sound to your location to your clothes to your, and even your like physical distances between you and people, you and cars, you and flowers, whatever. Those, everything that we don't even think important to count, they are all actually the facts. They are all variables, and one variable can have bigger impact than the other. And as they are intertwined, and some values will, and some variables will, so to speak, change your life, as it moves to some certain direction. And so when I see this fourth dimension in this concept that I'm thinking, that is actually all these variables, not just spatial or volume unit, but actually every single possibility and the logical factors in your life, or in some objects, surroundings, environment, everything that 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 affects this certain thing to be in or be like. Everything is unique to each object, starting from sound, and also starting from light. The light is so fast and so ubiquitous. But basically, what you see is the reflection of light from the every object around you. So that light is something that you don't necessarily understand or notice when you think about it as a variable. But it actually, light, it has a speed, and depends on the distance between you and the object. For example, when you are looking at your computer, it's almost instant. For human being, we are very slow. Like slow when compared to the speed of light. And you are looking at a star at night, and some stars actually have died, for example, and they don't exist, but you see it now because the light just came at this point after many years. So if you think about this, the distances between you and certain objects, they are unique to you. Not everybody has the exact same setup and exact same distances between objects in yourself or something, or car or anything. So these physical locations, locations, that is very unique to something that you want the fourth dimension model to use to calculate or demonstrate the possibilities, every single possibility that can happen when some variables actually change in certain ways or not change, because they're all intertwined. And the sound is easier to understand. For example, like when there are two people, I'm here, for example, I'm here and you are here, and a police car is going fast this way, and as it passes this person, as a Doppler effect, the sound effect, that as it passes this person hears the siren sounds different as it passes it. But so until here, when the police car is in the middle between me and somebody else, we hear different sounds. But as it passes me, and I hear also the different pitch of the sound. So, and also sound pitch can change depending on the speed and the locations, like that, because speed has its own sound has its own speed, which is not like 360 meters per second, and that's quite understandable for as a human being, because that's kind of measurable for our in our general lifetime with our general life experiences. And also time, the sound can change in volume or in pitch, whatever. For example, especially in sound, for example, sound is actually also gets reflected from the object. But for example, if you see the silence chamber as an example, when there's sound source, it's absorbed to every by every direction, the walls and ceilings and floors, that you don't actually hear things that much. So it's different. And if you actually speak in the church without any acoustic treatment, you will hear a lot of echoes. So the sound source also changes, and I think the light may also have the similar effect. So, and it's obvious that depending on the largest distances, which is large for human being, but probably not too large in this like space is standard. I don't know like what's the standard, but we as a human being living on the earth, for us the light is the fastest thing that we know at the moment. And for us the light is almost instant, so that we can ignore it as a human being. But in fact, everything you see and everything you hear and every distance between you and every object, they are all unique to you. And that's something that I think we can visualize and animate using fourth dimension, this model.